We are in Orchot Tzaddikim. Please please subscribe to the channel. Give a thumbs up. Hit the notifications. That way you know when a new class is given. We're on page 89. It says, we're talking about haughtiness. When a man sees that the trait of haughtiness is overtaking him, he must think of his heart. He must think of things that will frighten his heart. One, and this all comes from Pirkei Avot, from the Ethics of the Fathers, that he comes from a putrid drop. In other words, that's going to stop your arrogance. If you think of where you came from, a putrid drop, we're talking about semen. Okay? If you come from that, if you think that's where I came from, well, it ceases to be haughty. You just can't be haughty when you think like that. Okay? That he's going to return to dust. In other words, everything I build up, ultimately, it's all for naught. Everything I do in this world, I can have all the buildings in the world named after me. But bottom line is, when I die, I've turned to dust. So where's my haughtiness going to be? Nothing is going to save me from that. And in the end, his end will be worms and maggots. If that didn't get you enough that you're going to be dust, well, now you're going to be worms and maggots too. I mean, they're going to be eating you up. So again, really nothing to talk about. And he will eventually have to give an accounting before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He. Now that is probably the scariest part. When I'm haughty, when I think I'm the best thing since sliced bread, well, I know I have to now give an accounting before God for everything I've done. Well, it's only the negatives. I mean, the positive, really, Hashem's going to pick on me for. So it's going to be the negatives, and I have to explain all of that stuff. And when I'm explaining to God, there's no more, well, you got to understand. No, forget it. You just watch the videotape of all your dumb mistakes. It would be worse than watching, they have something on Americans' Funniest Videos or something. Right? That's what it's called? Americans? Yeah. So there you see all these people doing real dumb moves, we laugh at it, but can you imagine those poor people who were hit in the face and did everything else that they were doing? If they have to keep watching that video and saying why they broke their neck based upon the idiocy. The best one was when the boat was moving and their feet and they don't know to jump from one side and their legs are going like this. And of course, it's funny to watch, but at the same time, it's cruel. We love to watch stupid people, but that's what happens. But they have to give an accounting for what they're doing. So let them think about how many haughty men have vanished from the world, that have been forgotten as if they never existed. For what benefit was their haughtiness? So again, you have the same thing. If I want to stay away from haughtiness, I'll have to start thinking like that. Offense to keep far away from haughtiness and other evil traits. He who wishes to completely root coarseness out of his heart cannot do this by thought alone. And finish sentence. But in the beginning, he must remove himself from haughtiness to the outermost limits. So he says in 57, by thought alone, the Yesharim says that since the very nature of man is to be conceited and to be filled with feelings of self-importance, it is difficult to uproot this natural inclination unless one uses outward actions which are under his control, for they will eventually affect his inner self, which is less subject to his direction. Okay, so how is it? If a man was accustomed to wearing ostentatious, stylish garments like those who are haughty of spirit, and he wishes to depart from this, if he simply wears clothing that is modestly styled, he will not thereby root out his haughtiness from his heart. Okay, so what I do is, instead of wearing my beautiful clothes, I wear less beautiful clothes. He's arguing that's not going to be enough. You're still going to be haughty. So, or if he was accustomed to seeking honor and being forceful over others in word or deed, there is no correction for him until he humbles himself, sitting lower than all others, putting on worn-out garments that shame those who wear them and the like, until he roots out his haughtiness of heart. And again in 58, he says, those that shame those who wear them. Yesharim uses different wording on this issue, which may disagree with some of, which seems to disagree with those used in Orchot Tzaddikim. The Yesharim says, modest clothing, respectable but not showy. This implies that the clothing should not be the kind that shames the one who wears it. Perhaps the difference depends on the person being referred to. At this point, the author of Orchot Tzaddikim is writing concerning haughtiness, and is therefore referring to a person who must separate himself from haughtiness first, and before attempting to adopt the trait of humility. This person must go to the extreme in his style of living and wearing clothing that would shame its wearer. The author of Yesharim, on the other hand, is writing concerning the means of acquiring humility. The person referred to there is one who has, to a large extent, already distanced himself from the trait of haughtiness and is attempting to ascend to the next stage of spiritual growth, that of acquiring the trait of humility. This person needs only wear clothing that is respectable but not choice. So you have a distinction. Am I at the beginning of the journey? Well, that means I have to go to the other extreme. If I'm already gone through a lot of steps, it means I can go slower. If you think about, if I want to straighten out a tree that's bent, right? So I tie it to the other side so that the sun is going to make it grow that way, right? I'm bending it. So then, but sooner or later, I can loosen it till it goes to the middle. And I'll give you another example for that. Braces. What do braces do? Braces, for those who have it, it moves everything. And then, but slowly but surely, it's going to go into the middle. You're pushing it to the side to do that. So,
4 years.
4 years of braces. I hope you take care of your teeth. 4 years and $40,000 later. Oh, 4,000.
How much they cost.
You had braces for 4 years?
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th.
You wiped that out of your mind, right? You wiped that out of your mind. I spent that much money.
They were just the 80s. They're much better today. Like, you don't have them for that long anymore.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of money. That's all I know. But nonetheless, that's what we're talking about. It's you want to. The Rambam says, Maimonides says, if you want to change, you have to go to the other extreme and then to the middle. You can't go if I'm here, and I should be here. I can't just move here. That doesn't work. I have to go here. I can't even do it.
Yeah,
I have to go here, and then I can come back to the middle.
So that's like, I got these new glasses that I've been trying to, because they've been digging into my,
Right.
and and they want to spring back. So you just, you have to overdo it and then spring back, hopefully to the right place.
Like I said to you, I would go down to one of the local places.
Take us to a glasses place.
Yeah, I would go to the local place, and they would fit it for you. The reason they'll do it for you for free, by the way, is because it's good customer relations. That's why they do it. That's why they do it. It's great customer.
Responsible if they break them, though.
No, so they say that,
Right.
but they'll tell you that. But they're not going to try to break it because they want you to come back.
So in terms of a person, in other words, if somebody is just really far out, and let's say he wants to become Baal Tshuva, he really realizes the errors of his way, but he's so far out. In other words, what he's saying here is, if you're really that far out, you really have to humble yourself to a much lower level than
Correct.
normally would be.
Correct.
And then that would be like the overcorrecting.
Correct. You overcorrect, and then you come to the middle.
Is that to give perspective and balance? You have to kind of like go on both to get the balance in the middle?
Well, you want to come to the middle.
Right, but you have to go
Way over.
to get perspective.
Correct.
Whereas
If you find yourself angry, I'm angry about certain things, right? So I have to go way over, because why? I always pick on anger because anger is the easiest trait. Why do I get angry? Because I feel I should be in control of the situation. That's the only reason I get angry. I never get angry about what President what President Trump does. I certainly don't get angry about what Reagan does. Okay, but I never get angry about what Trump does. I don't get angry at what the other Michiganders in the Congress do either, because I really am not in control of that. Okay, but at the same time, if my kids do something that I think they should not have done, that's when I will get angry. Because why didn't you listen to me? Why I should be able to control that situation. I never get upset when the train is coming. I just drive her out. I don't get upset. It's not worth it. I never get upset in traffic. Other people are like, bzz, 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 about the traffic. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I can't control that, right? It's only those things I think I should be able to control. That's what I get angry about. So what happens if you sense that coming up? So now you have to, as you're coming to that point, you're coming there too, by the way. You have to ask yourself, why am I getting angry? Am I in control here? And you have to push yourself to the other side. And it's extremely difficult in the moment. All right, when your kids are getting on your back, or something is your wife, in my case, my wife, in your case, your spouse or your husband, okay, or in their case, their brother. Okay. The brother does something, they have to, okay, but we have to figure that out. What does make me feel that way? And then I have to go way over and saying, God, this is obviously a test from you. Thank you so much for the test. I'm about to flunk. Thank you so much. I'm going to really blow up here. But really, that's what it is. You have to go way over to the other side and say, I have no control, which is very hard for people to admit. Nobody wants to admit they have no control. Okay, and so if I can get to that point of, I have no control of the situation. The only thing I control is my emotion. And I'm doing a horrible job at that. So I have to figure that out. So I have to make it so I'm not going to do it. You laugh it off. You do what you're going to do. You realize how stupid the whole thing is. But that's up to you.
Correction would be what? Submissive and humble?
In that situation, yeah. Where I become submissive to the situation. I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying that if the kid is doing something wrong, you shouldn't stop him. Okay? But at the same time, I have to know. Maimonides says when your child is doing, or somebody's doing something wrong, it picks on children, then you can show an angry face, but at the same time you should be thinking to yourself, I am not angry, I am not angry, I am not angry. But the kid doesn't know that, but you need to know that. So again, that's a real balancing act. When it comes to if I'm greedy, okay? And I think I'm generous, but I know I'm greedy because what happens is somebody comes to me for money and I say, I have nothing. Meanwhile, the pennies, dollars, they're slipping out of my pocket, you know. I have enough to pay for whatever I want, but for you, pal, I have nothing. Okay? We all do that, by the way, when you're passing the people on the street begging. I just want to buy a drink, you know, or if they're honest. Or if I need we'll work for anything, right? You're not going to work for anything, you know. Okay, and that's how we view it. I'm not going to give you anything. I become cold-hearted. You want to be cold-hearted, by the way? Go to New York. Go to New York or the subway system. You have every single person, the guitar case open, something's open, and they're sitting there like this money. And we all look at them. Actually, nobody even looks at them anymore. You become so, what's it called, hardened to it. You don't look. And I guess if you would do the same thing I don't go downtown anymore, but when I would be downtown, I would also see that sort of panhandling. Not as much, but you have that. And again, people don't look. They just look the other way. I don't see anything. I don't want them to see anything. It certainly don't talk to the people. But that's what it is. So if I see I'm greedy or stingy, however you want to look at that word, okay, so I want to improve that. I need to go a little over. I have to go way overboard. So when I see something like that, I'm going to give them, even though it goes against my grain, I give them a quarter or whatever it's going to be. You know, give something to the guy.
Or buy a sandwich because you don't want him to shoot up heroin.
Okay, even buying a sandwich. Whatever. In other words, do something to change that trait so that you now see that person in a different light. And I mean, what it says in Talmud Devara, the palm tree of Devara, is that when you see somebody downtrodden like that, you should think to yourself how much God loves that person. How much God loves that person, that He made that person, that He's giving that person such a test in this life, that the person is obviously holier than me. Because that's why Hashem is doing it, because He can take it. I couldn't take that sort of life. That guy is so holy. Now, can you imagine if you look at somebody like that, it's going to change your perspective, right? Totally change your perspective. This guy is so holy. Unbelievable. I couldn't do that. And now you have a different appreciation of that. Now you may actually give him 50 cents instead of the dollar or the quarter. You may give him more. Or you may want to just say hi to him. Whatever the case is going to be, you're no longer going to think you're lower than dirt. Not you're holier than me. Okay, so again, it all depends on my perspective. Okay, so he says similarly, if one is hot-tempered and angers often, there you go. He must first come to react with complete passiveness to being hit or cursed. I wouldn't advise that for most people. Okay, cursed, yes, but hit, defend yourself. Okay, and he must persist in this way a long time until the root of wrath has been removed from his heart. then he can turn back and adopt the moderate course and remain with it the rest of his days. Again, we're not telling a person to remain at the other extreme. We're not into extremes here. We're just saying use the extreme because you can't go from 0 to 90 without going from 0 to 180 to 90. If you want to stay at the 90 being the middle. Right? So 0, I'm using mathematics here. But that's what you have to do. That's one thing geometry was good for. Okay. And this regimen should be pursued with every bad trait. First, one must remove himself from it until he can remove it himself no further and remain in that position for a long time. Then he must turn back and adopt the moderate course. This regimen guarantees a complete cure for all bad traits. One who is inclined to serve the blessed Creator with each trait in his choicest manner will set this path before himself and his fellow Jew. In this regard, it is said, to the one who sets his way, I will reveal the salvation of Hashem. And so he says in the note, and to the one who sets his way, I will reveal the salvation of Hashem. A person who makes a conscious effort to change his ways, differentiating good from bad, will merit having Hashem as his teacher and his guide in his quest for improvement. Changing and improving the bad trait, the bad meter, requires one to take the quote-unquote bull by the horns, as it were. Character development doesn't just happen by chance. One must make it happen, and once the effort is made to do so, Hashem opens the way for him to succeed. So that is step number 1. That was the gate of haughtiness. So, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, when it says after removing himself from it, he must return back and adopt the moderate course. Is it the moderate course or the positive course? Or is
well, okay, so it's a good question. Is it moderate or positive? So the answer is that, again, what the Orchot Tzaddikim is arguing is that there's no trait that is totally bad or totally good. So that's why he's saying so haughtiness I need it for certain things, okay? But at the same time, for the most part, I don't. For the most part, it's a very bad trait. But there are times I need it. So when he's saying to the moderate, back to the middle, I have to know when I can use it and when I shouldn't. Right. So it's neither good nor bad. It's par of actually. Okay.
Like moderate in how you use it, not moderate in like what it is. Like the moderate way of using the arrogance. As opposed to just
going crazy one way or the other. Right.
So it sounds like he's saying that when you've got a negative trait so ingrained that you're acting terribly nasty, whatever exactly it is, all the time, it's just to go to the total opposite direction, and it's until you become so accustomed to being humility, I guess. Well, on the other side, you become so accustomed to that then that seems to be more natural. Then you could allow yourself to go from looking like a total bum on the street in terms of ragged clothing to putting something that's modest on.
Right, if you're using clothing. So again, if I'm really into GQ guy.
Yeah, with the baggy pants pulled down and all that stuff, crazy stuff.
Well, that's stylish these days. I don't know. I'm not sure. No, I think look at the GQ guy, the guy who dresses with the Armani suits. Okay, and he's all that sort of, I'm the cat's meow if they still use that.
In the 70s, the Nehru jackets.
You got me on that one, okay. Armani I know from the gangster, so I don't know. But if you would dress like that, sorry?
Bell bottoms.
That I remember, okay. So if you would dress like that, and that's because you want to impress people, so that's when he's saying you should go the other extreme. Yeah. And today we don't, see the problem is today, when we go to the extreme, you're still stylish. That's the problem. What?
Go to Walmart.
As I said, you're still stylish. Right? You're still stylish. So you have to.
All that stylish pajama bottoms and house shoes.
Yeah, they're stylish already. So you have to. What I'm saying is, you have to figure out what today. See, he's talking in 15, not 15 earlier, but he's going way back when he would walk around with rags. It would mean something today. torn jeans, all these things. It's again, you're part of it. So what I would suggest today is that, and by the way, that's if you think about the Orthodox dress, or the Amish dress for that matter, or the dark clothing, where you're walking around with the white shirt. Yeah, today I'm wearing a white shirt, so I can pick on a white shirt. Okay, the white shirt or the darker clothes, and it's not stylish. White goes with everything. I mean, it's a true. I would never be caught dead when I was in high school with white shirts. Forget that. That would have happened. That had a different connotation in those days. But we again walking around in what we call. My mother used to call it classic style. There was a classic style. If you walk classic style, it's never out of style, and that's why it's classic. And it also doesn't. It's not showy. It's just a nice style. So that's why when it came to dresses, in the old days, in the 70s, you picked in the 70s, you had mini skirts and you had maxi skirts. My mother said midi skirts are what you want, because that would be the middle. So my mother walked in the classic style all the time. That way she was always in style, and it didn't really bother her. But that's really what he would be really pushing for.
So my wife had an adopted uncle. He was a very close friend of their family. It was his uncle,
right?
Like that. And he was an accountant by work, so he always dressed nicely. But he had his suits custom made and ties. He never changed the lapels. In the 60s were skinny, in the 40s were big, in the 70s came back wide, in the wide ties. He always had his suits medium cut lapels.
Classic style.
Medium with ties. He never changed. When they went out back and forth, he never changed. Yeah.
But the point is that's classic. So when you're classic, you're never out of style. So that's what he would, today, we would say you should be the classic style. Because you're neither on either side of that. You're in the middle, and that's really what you want. And you're doing it because you don't want to be showy. You don't want to be ostentatious. Once I can get to that, then I'm all set. Because like I said, today, if you dress down, well, you're in style already, so it's no good either.
I remember also in the 70s or 80s, at Saks Fifth Avenue, they put a new strip mall in St. Louis, out in the suburban area on Lindbergh, and they opened up Saks Fifth Avenue. We went, wow, first class story. We decided to go there with a group of friends. We put our suits and ties on. The women put the dresses on. Everybody, they're wearing blue jeans and pullover shirts.
Like I said, those
women are wearing short pants.
Correct. It's short pants. That's a nice way to talk about it. Okay. So let's go to humility. Okay. So it says, humility is a noble trait. Everybody's good? All the way back there? Okay. So humility is a noble trait and a good quality. The opposite of haughtiness. One who possesses this trait has already spared his soul of many evils. And he says again, this is because a humble person is willing to set aside his own thinking and approach to issues when they contradict those of the Torah and the rabbis. However, someone who is filled with haughtiness is unwilling to bend or forsake his precious ideals, simply because they are his. As the saying goes, don't bother with the facts, I've already made up my mind. So, okay, that's the arrogant person. And he says, so again, one who possesses this trait has already spared himself, and one who has attained this honored level is performing a mitzvah and receives reward for the extent of his humility. How is he doing a mitzvah? She says, Rabbeinu Yonah says, a person who should be exceedingly humble, again, Pirkei Avot, and so that's the source for the mitzvah of humility. And it says from the Torah, when your heart grows haughty, then you will forget Hashem. So humility is the mitzvah that we're getting when we remain humble. If we're doing, by the way, again, I'll say this 1,000 times over, if we're doing it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, that's when it's a mitzvah. If we're doing it to show you how humble I really am, because I want you to honor me, that ceases to be the proper way, because it's really haughtiness, and that we talked about before. I show that I'm humble because I want you to respect me and realize how humble I am, so I'm going to tell you how humble I am. I'm the humblest guy in the world, okay? And therefore, you're going to respect me. Well, that's haughty. That's the Yetzer Hara telling you. So again, you have to really remember that the Yetzer Hara, that little guy, he's been around for thousands of years, and he knows what to do. Okay, he knows how to get to us every time, and we usually fall for it. We have to really be on guard. Okay, your husband had a whole thing on that today. So, for humility is the root of divine service, and a small deed of the humble man is 1,000 times more acceptable to Hashem than a great deed of a haughty man. That's also, by the way, if you want to take this to marital bliss, okay? This is one of the things they say in men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Men don't get this. A woman wants a lot of small gifts. She doesn't want a big, grandiose gift. If you give her the big, grandiose gift, you saved your money, you went to work, and you brought her a diamond ring, whatever turns you on. Okay, you brought that diamond ring, and you spend, $3,000. You went to Kay's Jewelers, because I see it advertised all the time, Kay's Jewelers, and you come home, and here you go, honey, I love you so much, and she gets that. Well, okay, very nice. Why did you bring me flowers? I'd rather have flowers, right? Okay.
Well, that's exactly the reverse to him. I was working, and I want to get him an engagement ring, and I put it on layaway, and it took me 9 months to pay it off, and it was Christmas time, so I bought this cheap little toolbox, with the little things, and I put the ring in there, and I put it all in there. He's like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted one of these toolbox holders. I'm like, look inside. He goes, oh, that's nice. Oh my gosh. Doesn't have the ring, still has a little toolbox holder. Same goes for the men.
No, but a man will take that big prize, and that's all he cares about for a little while. There's no problem. But the woman wants a little, rather have a little, a lot of littles than one major. And so that's like what's going on here. That's the same sort of principle. God rather have the small deed of a humble man, because he's already there, is 1,000 times more acceptable than the great deed of the haughty man. Haughty man says, I'm going to give a synagogue. I don't want to pick a synagogue. I'm going to give $1 million to the organization. Well, everybody loves him for 5 seconds. You really did a nice job. $1 million is great. Thank you very much. I'm going to hit you up next year for next million. Okay, but that's a haughty. That's a haughty. I'm going to give it one time because that's what you really want. No, I'd rather have small incremental gifts. That's what God is saying. Do it constantly, and I'd rather have that. That's the humble guy who's doing it l'shem shemaim versus a haughty guy who's doing it for his own purposes. So did our rabbi teach us. But both he who does much and he who does little, as long as his heart is an intent for the glory of God. That's what I'm saying. But the deed of the haughty man is not acceptable to Hashem, for it is an abomination of his soul, as is written. The abomination of Hashem are all who are haughty of the heart. And because of this, one shouts to Hashem and is not answered, as is written. Though you increase your prayer, I shall not accept. And he explains, why should Hashem listen? This is in 6. This can be compared to the one who is Tovel v'shered biyado, that he immerses himself in the mikvah while holding on to the insect. Now, there's a rule that if I'm going to go to a ritual bath, because I want to become spiritually clean, which is what people do, if I'm holding an animal, a sheretz, a creepy crawly, in my hand, okay, that is the essence of impurity. I'm holding it in my hand. I'm going to this ritual pool to make me pure. But I'm holding that. Am I going to become ritually pure? No. Because I'm holding that very essence that is no good. Okay, so it says, this person who was haughty, and he's increasing his prayer, and he's yelling and doing what he wants, he says, why should Hashem listen? It's although the mikveh is perfectly kosher, contact with the insect prevents purification. The same holds true here. Although the prayers are offered with perfect intent, If the one who is praying is possessed with the trait of haughtiness, acceptance of his prayers is prevented. The Midrash says that since the Torah says, "V'ya'aminu b'Hashem Moshe Avdo," they trusted in Hashem and in Moshe, his servant, and only then does it say, "Az Yishem Moshe," that Moshe then saying, we learn the rule, "Sarech Adam l'tahir libo kodem shipalel," that a man must first purify his heart before praying. So before I go to pray, I have to realize I'm praying to God. And therefore, once I'm standing in front of God, should I have any haughtiness? Of course not. How can I have haughtiness with God? God runs the world. The fact that I'm breathing is because God says yes. I mean, think about that. The fact that I can do anything because God said yes. God literally controls my life. God can take me out like that. Snap a finger. Faster than that. Okay, so how can I ever be haughty to God? It's impossible. So that's what it is. So before you start praying, you're supposed to get to that stage, which, by the way, if you go through our prayers, that's why we start off in the very beginning. If we were men of great renown, it would be worthless to you, before you, and so on and so forth. We're trying to humble ourselves at that point so that when we come to the actual thing of the ask, there's a point we do ask God for something. We've already humbled ourselves, hopefully, and realize who we're speaking with and who we're asking for this. So that's the purpose of all those long prayers that we go through, even if it's a short prayer of Ashrei, again, of the Psalm 145. It's still illustrating how everything comes from God. And again, if I go through that and I think about the words, I should get to where I have to get to. Okay? And he does the mitzvot, and they are flung in his face, as it is written, "Who asks of your hands, you tramplers of my courts?" And he brings the sacrifice, but it's not accepted. As is written, "If only there were one of you who would slam the doors of the temple, an offering I will not accept from your hand." And it says, "And your burnt offerings to your sacrifices, and eat flesh." Hashem doesn't want them. But, okay, so again, it's the old joke of the mafia guy who steals from the store and he gives 10% to the church. God's saying, no, I don't want that. You know the joke, right? That's what happens. People, they steal or they rip people off, and then they say, okay, I want to take 10%, I'm going to give it to the charity. You haven't done anything. That's an abomination. Okay? So, but through the trait of humility and lowliness, one attains all good. For to the humble he gives favor. And since he has favor, okay, so let me go to the gray box here. Chazal tell us that since the destruction of the temple, prayers are in the place of the offerings that were brought. This being the case, all that has been mentioned in reference to offerings must be applied to prayer. Prayers offered with humility are acceptable to Hashem, by Hashem, whereas if one's prayers are tainted with haughtiness, for example, one who prays while wondering if he is being observed and thus making a good impression with his pious supplications, we can safely assume, as in the case of the offering to the altar, his prayers would not be accepted by Hashem. A good test of this is to think how one's prayers would be if he were alone with nobody watching. If when in public one's prayers are longer and more intense than when praying privately, one needs to reconsider their sincerity. Okay? This is something that when you're in a group, well, two things happen, by the way. When you're in a group, then, depending on what's going on, we have to wait for a certain amount of people to finish before we can continue. So there was one time a rabbi brought some of his congregation on a retreat. It wasn't a whole synagogue. He picked the people. He actually picked the people and said, "You're going on a retreat with me." Okay, fine. This must be that's like being called to the principal's office. Okay. Nonetheless, he had everybody there on their retreat, and he said, "The rule is, we will not begin the repetition of the silent prayer until every single person is finished." Oh, that's a killer. Okay, normally you have to wait for 6, 10. If you want to be really stringent, 10, fine. You have 20 people in the room. Okay? Now what happens is, if I'm waiting for you, what I'm doing, I'm standing up there, right? And I'm looking around, I'm counting. Everybody in that room knows I'm waiting, right? Everybody knows I'm waiting. So now there's a little pressure on them. Because I finished quickly. And I'm waiting. And then some people have to go like this. Oh, that's really the most disturbing thing. It's like, leave me alone. Okay. But there's a little pressure on you. Okay. But there's always one guy who doesn't care. He's speaking to God. And he doesn't care. So he's going to take his time. Now, normally, let's understand, we don't wait for him because normally we have the other 10. But now the rabbi's rule was, we're waiting for everybody. We're not moving till we all finish. He did it on purpose too. He did it on purpose. He wasn't the slowest. It was different. No, it was one of my colleagues. Yeah. It wasn't anybody here. So the rabbi finished earlier than the other guys, and they were going because they thought, no way. And they took their time, and everybody has to wait, and people shuffling back and forth. By the experiment was showing people, because certain people wouldn't move faster, that what happened, everybody's prayers got longer. Why? Because they said, if speeding up doesn't help me, so why should I go faster? And they start to go slower. And so by the end of the weekend, he had accomplished what he wanted. That prayer is not a speed race here. It's something that you're talking to God. He hoped to be in that Baptist congregation. It didn't last long because everybody went back into their normal routine. So that's the other side of this. If I'm having to wait anyway, so I'm not going to be in a rush. If I'm alone in my house, I'm not competing with anybody, but I'm also looking at the time. And so I may go faster. So that's the only time that I would disagree on his approach here, on Rabbi Haughtiness' approach. Because sometimes when I'm praying by myself, I can have a lot of intent, but I'm not going to worry about what everybody else is doing. And I'm going to go faster than I would even hear. Because nobody's listening to me. When I'm here, people listen to what I'm saying. And so I have to listen to the crowd. Where are you? I'm really going, I'm pacing. As compared to my home, I'm not pacing anymore. Now I'm going my own speed. So that's the only way I want to bring that up, because that's where I would disagree with him. It's not a matter of how fast or what I would do in public versus private. I would agree that if I'm in public and I'm putting on a show so that you can now see how great I am, that's wrong. That's wrong. But I don't think it's a fair comparison to say for what I'm doing at home to what I'm doing in the synagogue per se, or with the group.
I think what he's saying, if you're in shul and you're purposely davening really slow and
right.
and back, and if you're home,
correct.
I gotta get out of here.
No, but I'm saying it. But there could be two. I'm saying
nobody's watching me. I'm gonna get done.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It could be two different things. What if you're saying it because when people like to shake their fist at God, so on and so forth. Okay, so then I don't know. Are you doing it? Would you do that at home too? I don't know. If you would, okay, God bless you. But if you wouldn't, then I have a problem with why you're shaking your fist. Okay, but like I said, speed doesn't always determine what's going on. That's all. I just want to bring that point up. Okay,
yeah. The other way, meaning that if you're doing it, people will skip also to get fat to catch up. And that's rampant in the schools for sure.
Okay.
Even older kids, even
right.
adults.
Well,
the pressure's on, then they'll skip.
Correct.
Whereas if at home, they'll do it.
You hope.
They'll do the whole thing.
I hope so. But I agree with you. When people are feeling under pressure, they may skip, which is also not good. But that's a matter of teaching. That's a matter of teaching what the halacha would be, what the Jewish law would say. And telling people not to...
teaching versus peer pressure or...
Well, again, I think there's more teaching of what we're doing with this. And what you can't skip when you want to, when you have to. That's another thing. That's part of the education too. What can I skip when I have to skip? But who am I praying to? And should I be worried about what other people are doing? It's like when we want, when it comes to a test. Okay? What happens when it comes to a test? Kids are taking a test, right? There's always one person who finishes within 20 minutes of the test being given. And so we have extra work for those tzaddikim. We have extra for them. But nonetheless, they do it. Why? And they don't do well on the test because they just want to get through with it. Well, other people see that and they say, well, why is he getting to read or why this? And so now they start rushing. And we as parents say to them, did you check? Because we see the grades. And the first thing I just ask my kids is, did you check your work? No. Why? No. How much time did you have? Well, I was one of the last. How much time did you have? Don't tell me what you were. Did you have 5 minutes to look it over? Yes. Did you? No. It's your fault. Look it over. Use every single moment you have. Don't waste your time because you want to play whatever you're going to play. And that's the parent. That's really when the parents have to teach the kids how to do it. And when you're davening, when you're praying, again, you have to teach the kids that don't rush. I used to tell my kid, don't rush because
I'm saying it's not just a kid problem, it's an adult problem as well.
Say again?
I was saying that it's not just a kid problem, it's an adult problem.
But it starts from the kids.
Yeah.
When my kids first started to lead, right, and it was on Sunday morning. Sunday mornings in this place, originally, you didn't want to lead. Just didn't want to lead. You had 10 minutes, and I said, chick-chock, okay? And I said to my son, if somebody comes to you, I don't care who it is, somebody comes to you and says, go faster, walk away. Just let them lead. And you daven the right way. I said, they'll never tell me. They shouldn't tell you. When they do, you walk away and say, take over. And that's it. And nobody ever did because he's my son, so they didn't pick on him. But he also wasn't that slow. But that's what he did. And he said every word as a result of that. And that's what you have to do. Again, I think that's on us as parents to train our kids. And then as adults, hopefully they'll do what they were trained to do. And they'll say the words properly and everything else. And again, they'll recognize the davening to Hashem and not tied to a clock, to a train, as they were in Sharon, Massachusetts, or in other places. In other words, we're trained to do certain things. I think that we have to break that training. And that comes from teaching us young kids, and if we're Balei Tshuva, if we're returning to the faith, that we have to learn to. That again, I have to know I'm davening to Hashem and not to a clock or to a specific time. And by the way, if I know I'm going to be late, let's say people say, I need more time to daven. You know my response is, come early. Yeah. Who tells you to start with us? If you need 45 minutes to an hour, guess what? You only have to be with us for Shemona Esrei. That's it. Learn the halacha. So now come in before. Yeah. Instead of sitting there waiting for you to say blessings, start yourself and go. And then you'll be, when I get to Shemona Esrei, to the Midah, where we're supposed to be together, you'll be there. And then you go in, again, your own speed. I don't care. That's up to you. But again, we have to know what the halacha is, and we have to train ourselves properly. Okay, we will have to stop there.
Okay.